Hey, friend, welcome to Taking Back Happy. We talk a lot around here about choosing joy, shifting your mindset, taking back your own happy. But what happens when life hits so hard that happy literally feels out of reach? Today, I'm going to share something that is deeply personal. It's one of the most painful things I've ever been through in my entire life. And it just reminded me while I was thinking about it today was that taking back happy doesn't necessarily mean life is always happy. Sometimes taking back happy means holding joy and heartbreak at the exact same time. This isn't going to be a light episode, but I believe it's going to be a healing one because even in the middle of pain, there is always purpose. There is always hope. So let's take a deep breath, my friend. Let's talk about what it really means to take back your happy, even when it hurts. Hi, friends. Welcome to Taking Back Happy. I'm your host, Gina Granville, God's girl, retired homeschool mom of 4, empty nester, Gigi, essential oil and exercise enthusiast, Christian life coach, and someone who is taking back her own happy. I know many of you feel exactly like I do in these midlife years, wondering if your best days are behind you, but feeling way too young and vibrant to sit on the porch and just watch life go by. What if you could replace negative thoughts with curiosity and possibility, renewing your mind, faith, joy, passion, purpose, and adventure in this season? If you're ready for a little mindset coaching as you navigate change, then throw on those walking shoes, pop in those earbuds, and join me right here as we take back happy together. Hey friends, did you know I have a Taking Back Happy Facebook group? It's a lot of fun. It's a place where we can get in there and share with one another and just build community and be with like-minded people. Also, how about becoming a TBH Insider, a Taking Back Happy Insider? I'll post the link in the notes below this show, but if you become a TBH Insider, you get free weekly emails, the latest podcasts, tips on creating a happy mindset, early bird access to special offers, and encouraging Bible devos. So it's a great way, if you like the podcast, it's a great way to have a little bit more insight. Okay, so let's get into it. We were driving miles and miles and miles on that dark road. 2 hours had turned into 4 hours, had turned into 6, had turned into 8. It was we were probably about 3 or 4 hours from our destination. We were so exhausted. We had driven through the night and we stopped at a gas station. It was my daughter and I, and we went in, and it was the first time I ever considered getting an energy drink. Little Miss, kind of healthy back then. I had never had an energy drink, but boy, was I exhausted. Anyway, Laura grabbed an energy drink. I grabbed a soda, and we got back on the road again. And I just remember we were praying. We had people all over praying for us and sending text messages and doing all the things. But I just remember thinking, are we going to make it in time? Are we going to get there before it's too late? Will I be able to see him one more time? And we were just going as fast as we could possibly go, within doing it safely. As night began to turn in the morning, we pulled into town and we were trying to find our way to the hospital. I kind of remembered where the hospital was. It had been a while since I'd been in Indianapolis, and I was looking. I figured I would see it. It had this little tower up at the top. But after driving around and around, it was starting to get a little bit light. I remember we stopped at a gas station and asked for directions, and we were not very far from the hospital. We finally got there. By the time we got there, I think it was like 6 a.m. And we went in, and I was so thankful that my brother was still alive. My brother Eric had attempted to take his own life, and it was literally over 2 weeks. It was just miracle after miracle. He shot himself, and so first of all, he shouldn't have lived. Secondly, he had a surgery. Again, they didn't think he would pull through that surgery, but when we had pulled up that morning in Indianapolis, it was after the surgery. He was still alive. Then he was in like a coma state for at least a week, maybe 10 days. And they had said, usually, if they're not awake by this time, they're not going to wake up. And he woke back up. So I just knew the hand of God was on him. And I was just so eternally grateful for that. I knew that God still had a plan and a purpose for his life. But I'm just going to share today, not really that story and everything we went into, because it was a lot and it was really traumatic and it was really devastating. But even in the midst of all of that, we could still find the glimpses of joy. Frederick Buechner has this awesome quote that I just really love. It says, "Here's the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid." So even though this experience with my brother is beautiful and terrible, it really brought me back the three powerful truths that I want to share with you today. The first thing, and probably the biggest thing, especially when you have a family member commit suicide or attempt suicide, is some things you will never really understand. As humans, our brain, our minds really crave meaning. We want to make sense of pain. We want to understand why. And there are just some things on this side of heaven that just don't really make sense. When my brother was in ICU and he was fighting for his life, our family just really rallied around. Like, not just even my immediate family, but all my cousins from Southern Indiana, my cousins from Indianapolis, my cousins from Northern Indiana. Everybody just came, aunts, uncles, everyone. They just came and they sat with us and they loved on us and they prayed with us. And, everything was really touch and go. But one of the things that we just kept talking about and mulling over was the question of why. Why did this have to happen? What could have been so sad and so devastating that you would take your own life? And there really wasn't a answer. Like, it was just because nobody was in his head. Nobody understood. I mean, there was details and things like that, multiple things that could have been reasons, but nobody was really in his head and nobody really knew the answers to those questions. He had two teenage sons and he was married at the time. And so there was just so many questions and so few answers. And the more that we talked about it and the more that we came up with different things, we just realized that, some things you're really never going to understand. Even if you're not walking in those person's shoes, if you're not in their head, you're not going to understand why they made that choice. And it kind of goes back to this verse that I bring up almost every week in our podcast is Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Because literally our understanding in this case was nothing. Sometimes when you have understanding and you're kind of like putting your understanding above God, like, oh, I can do all these things. Da, da, da. But no, not in this case. Our understanding was nothing. We didn't understand. And then we went back and forth and we were like, oh, I wish I could have done this. I wish I had done this. But we just didn't know. We didn't know what to do. And we didn't understand. We totally didn't understand. So one of the things that we can do is we can really reflect on surrender, choosing peace, even when there are no answers. We can still make a choice. A good mindset angle might be when we can't find understanding, we can still choose to trust God. The second thing that really stood out to me was tragedy puts all your priorities in place, and it happens almost immediately. When my brother attempted to take his own life, I was homeschooling. I was teaching at a classical homeschool, teaching not just my kids, but other students as well. I was taking care of my husband's elderly aunt and all the medical things she had going on. I was actually just had filed for divorce. So life was a little bit crazy and, a lot was going on. But when this happened, it kind of like, boom, it put everything in perspective. And it was like, you know what? None of that other stuff really matters. What really matters is having the people around you that you love and that love you and that you guys are there for each other. And I think that was what was so blatant when we were all sitting in that hospital for hours and hours and people would come in and out every day and only a couple people go into the ICU at a time. So most of the time, most of us were just sitting outside, visiting with one another. And it became so clear where the true priorities lay. It wasn't in the homeschooling. It wasn't in even taking care of an elderly aunt. It wasn't in, going through the courts or doing whatever had to be done, with that divorce. It was the people. And it was, all that really mattered at that point was I just wanted him to pull through. And that was all of our prayer and our hope for sure. It's those little things that really stop mattering. I mean, they're big things to us until we go through something like that, right? So you might connect this even in some of the things that you go through in your life. You might be going through like this midlife shift and you have different things that you're going on. And, you've spent years like managing and striving and doing. And sometimes it's that tragedy that actually wakes us up to being where we're like, it's not what we do. It's not our job. It's not how we perform this or that. It's the people. It's who we love. In Psalm 90, verse 12, it says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. I was like, oh, that's so good. So this is a good time for a reflection. What really matters to you right now? And how are you spending your energy there? How are you spending your time? Does what you value most, do your actions back that up? So my third big takeaway didn't come from the time that all of this happened. It didn't come from when my brother was in the hospital. It didn't come from when he pulled through and, went into rehab and then went into my parents' home for a while and then went and had therapy and just all those different things. My third point happened over a period of 10 years. The third point is expectations are premeditated resentments. I'm going to say that again. Our expectations can be premeditated resentment. When we expect people or even life in general to go a certain way, we really set ourselves up for disappointment. I mean, we can still have hope, but we really have to let go of control because the bottom line is you can't make anybody do anything. And for you to have expectations that this or that person should act a certain way, think a certain way, anything like that is really, it's a mistake on your part because it's not hurting that other person. It's hurting you because you're putting these expectations on that person. They may or may not even know you have the expectations, but you're putting those expectations on somebody else. And it's really clearly out of your hands. God invites us to surrender outcomes. In Philippians 4, 6, and 7, it says, do not be anxious about anything. And anything is anything, my friends. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean we stop caring. It means that we start trusting. I feel like this can change almost any relationship we're in because usually expectations come in close relationships, in relationships with our husband, in relationship with our parents, with our kids, with our grown kids. We have these expectations and they're not being met and we get resentful. And that only hurts us, but I would say it hurts us, but it also hurts the relationship. So these are things that we want to start thinking about and like, how can I let go of my expectations for this person and trust them to make the best choices for their life and trust God in the process. And we just really want to walk in grace. We want to have grace for others, and we want to also have grace for ourselves. So if we have these expectations and they're not being met and we're getting resentful, and then we realize that, cut yourself some slack. Hey, at least you realized it. You watched what your mindset was doing there. And then just make the choice. Make the choice to let it go. Make the choice to trust God. My brother passed away in February 2023, but before he passed away, I had so many expectations for him. I had all these hopes and all these dreams that he was going to, start therapy again and he was going to get stronger and he was going to get out of his bed and he was going to do all these things because he had been in a skilled nursing facility and, 2020 hit and he was isolated and that year was just super rough. And he had a brain injury, So he wasn't getting up and doing the things that I knew that if he would just get up and do these things every day, then he would get stronger and he would get better and his life could be better. And while he was still alive, he didn't make the choice to do that. Maybe he was incapable of making that choice, or, maybe by that point, even physically, he wasn't able to make that choice. But I just remember being so disappointed and not disappointed in him, but disappointed for him. And, I wasn't really resentful per se, but maybe I was a little bit like, oh my goodness, if you would just, if you hear yourself saying, if you would just, that might be a hint. Every choice a person makes affects so many other people. Like my favorite movie, I love the movie It's a Wonderful Life. And, at the end, that's the whole point that the angel's making with George. You had a wonderful life, George, is like how everybody's life is intertwined. And, our life affects so many other people in a positive way. That's just one of the big things that stood out to me. Even though I have like these, I feel like these are really great life lessons, as far as like, some things we're really never going to understand. And, tragedy does put our priorities in place and expectations can, be premeditated resentment and all that. But at the end of the day, taking back happy isn't really pretending that everything's fine. It's choosing to walk through the hard things with God. It's knowing that joy still exists on the other side of sorrow, and if we just kind of take a minute and, reflect on that and know that we can hold both things at the same time. We can hold both grief and gratitude. We can take back our happy, even with tears in our eyes, because happy isn't just a feeling. It's actually a decision. It's a faith decision. So my taking back happy friends, I just want to encourage you that even if you're going through a really, really tough time, or even if you've been through a tough time in the past, even if like a hell on earth kind of situation, you can still have that happiness in your life. You can choose that. You can choose to turn to God. You can choose to connect with other people, and you can just walk through the valley of the shadow of death and, come out on the other side. So it's never too late. As long as you have breath in your lungs, you can still take back that happy. Do you want to connect? Get in that Taking Back Happy Facebook group. That's a great place to connect with me and connect with other women who are doing the same thing, taking back their own happy. Jump on the TBH Insider and get the weekly email. It was so funny because the first 2 weeks, it was just my daughter and I that were on the email list. And then last week, we had 10 new people hop on. So go ahead and get in there because I am really enjoying sharing these things and I'd love to share them with you. So, my Taking Back Happy friends, have a wonderful week and I will catch you here next time. If this podcast blessed and encouraged you today, I'd love for you to share it with your friends. You can take a screenshot and share it in your stories, but make sure you tag me at Gina Granville so we can connect. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you join my Taking Back Happy Facebook group. I'll meet you back here soon, and we'll continue taking back happy together.